The term Vedanta covers a whole wide range of things. And the term itself implies we have to go back to the Vedas. That's the one point. The other point is that for practical purposes, we have to understand something along the lines of a relativity of perception. A big deal of this was made in the 20th century. It was thought, two people moving, they're all moving at the same rate, speed of light is the same, everything looks the same. But actually, that's not our experience. Things look as if they're moving at different speeds. It depends where you are. So, for example, if you have two twins, or two people who are twins, and the one stands on the earth and the other one moves, let's say, almost at the speed of light, it is a wrong assumption to think that when that person returns to the earth, they'll be younger because, somehow they've short-circuited time. No, it's just that it looks as if one has moved very quickly and has really combated the effects of time, and the other one has not. But you see, when the other person returns back to earth, nothing will have changed because it depends where you are standing. So often I use that example of a rainbow, that is dispersed light, fragmented seemingly through a prism or something. And in this case, rainbow, the prism is the raindrops. And the question comes from a philosopher's point of view, hey, I've seen a rainbow. Is it real or is it unreal? Now, whatever position you take, we are concerned with what we call samsara. Samsara means this life which seems to have a pattern of birth, life, and death, of happiness and pain and sorrow, a mixed bag. And there's, generally speaking, what we call life. And we want to deal with it in the sense that we want what samsara does not have to offer, that is, unlimited, unchanging happiness, unlimited, unchanging peace, unlimited, unchanging fulfillment by its own very nature, nothing to add to it, nothing to take away from it. So that's the one point of view that everybody is seeking. And if we look at Vedanta and different points of view, such as dualism and non-dualism and so on, three kinds of approaches and many, many more in-betweens, we're all looking for this way of dealing with samsara. We're all dealing with freedom of some kind from it, it's called moksha. And we're all dealing with causal effects, which we call karma. These three salient things are true regardless of where you are standing. And in answer to the question, the rainbow, does it exist or not? Well, we can analyze a rainbow, no doubt. But you see, if you're going above the clouds and altering the angle of light and seeing there that is the unsplit, the unfragmented white light is there, and which means that the rainbow has disappeared. So it's not a question of does the rainbow exist or not? Is the rainbow real or not? The better question is, please tell me, where are you standing from? So things look different according to where you stand. And that is something to do with practicality. What we call non-dualism is the final conclusion, if you like, not just a philosophical thinking and rationalizing and arguing and so on and so forth, mere philosophizing. No, it is the outcome of some kind of experience. And we're emphasizing non-dualism because we're following Shankaracharya, but I need to explain that there are three texts in the established canon, if you like, of Vedanta. Buddhism has an established canon, Christianity has an established canon of texts, what you call the biblical texts, some of which are being argued over. Some branches of Christianity accept some books and not others. Greek Orthodox accept some books and not others, and so on. And if we linger a little bit on Christianity, that is around Christ, there are, if you look at it carefully, three positions that are taken. One position is, I am praying as an individual to my Father in heaven. Well, this is dualism. In other words, there are two things, the worshipper and the being that is being worshipped. And it is not just that there's a separation, there's an intimacy about it. There is an expression of love. There is an assumption that what we call the Father in this context is also a creator of everything. And the creator and the creation is assumed to be something separate. But then Jesus says, I am the vine and you are the branches. In other words, there's a connectivity between everything, a kind of universalism, which says, somehow I feel that I am a spark of the divine, a kind of, not exactly disconnected, a kind of reflection of that divine, in line with the statement, we are made in the image and likeness of that supreme being called God. But then he seems to shift the position and says, I and the Father are one. And the mistake probably that theologians make is it's exclusively a statement to do with Jesus and no other being. But if you're a philosopher, you'll understand, well, actually that's a third position that we could take, that I and the Father are one. Now, technically speaking, we have covered what is called Dvaita, dualism, Vishishtadvaita, that is qualified non-dualism, that says we are spark of the divine, and ultimately there are no two, monism. There are no two. We don't use the term monism lightly, but for convenience we can say it. We're saying it's numberless, this inexplicable, it's an absolute there, and that's all there is. And proponents of these three different approaches historically in India have somehow felt, or at least given the perception, that these are three exactly different, unreconcilable positions. Now the canon that I mentioned is threefold. So the canon of the Vedanta is that they are the Upanishads. The Upanishads is the primary text, not just seen to be valid for followers of Hinduism or Vedanta or what have you, but seen to be the standard for all evaluations of scriptures, because other scriptures, which are come under the classification of those which are remembered, technically we call it smriti, these are texts which are inspired but written by humans. Shruti, the perennial texts, on the other hand, Upanishads being that, would state, no, these are not inspired at all. These are more likely expired. These are actual facts. And the whole idea of establishing a fact is not just because of assumptions or observations, but empirical experience. This is the experience. I experience a oneness. I experience that there are no two things. I experience that I am a spark of the divine. I experience that I'm a devotee and that God is worth praising and worshipping, ritualistically or prayerfully or any other way, but these are expressive ways, and there's a sweetness to that. Now, then the next part of this Prasthanatraya, this canon, would be the what is called the Brahma Sutras, written by Vyasa or Badaranya. This is a text which explains, and these are sutras, 555 or odd sutras or aphorisms, which then tries to explain and systematize and present what is the meaning of these abstract texts, discussions called Upanishad. taken to mean teachings passed on from generation to generation by students sitting near a teacher. Upanishad, that's the interpretation of the meaning. Then you have the third thing, which is a whole summary of this, put into more comprehensive language, and that is the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, extracted from Mahabharata, and it is only the Upanishads which are said to be Shruti, that is perennial, discovered facts, if you will, deep revelations of actual truth. Bhagavad Gita, on the other hand, comes under the category of Smriti, the thing that is remembered. But the Brahma Sutras lends itself to creating divisions and schools of thought, interpreting, if you will, the Upanishads. And because they are aphorisms, that is not fully explained in and of themselves, commentators have come along. Now, Shankaracharya is the champion and commentator on the Brahma Sutras. He writes a big bhashya, big commentary on it. And he's taking it from a non-dualistic position. And he's making commentaries on these aphoristic sayings, aphoristic presentations. And so we have from the, let us say, the 8th century of this era, 700 and something probably, we have Shankaracharya's position. That is a standard kind of position until things develop and people challenge it. And the 12th century, we had Ramanuja, a great scholar and a great saint, who says, I can't go along with you in terms of this non-dualism. I can't exactly say that I am one with God, if you put it theistically. I think there is a separation, but there is an intimate connectedness. So I feel that I am a part and parcel of it. You know, we can use the analogy of an ocean. You say you're only the ocean, but I feel that I am one of a series of waves. And you cannot have a wave without the ocean, and yet the ocean and the wave seem separate. Now, this is a position. It is a relativity of perception, engaging in that to say, this is actually what seems to be. That this world seems to be connected, it seems to be manifested, and yes, there is seemingly one entity, but there is an intimate connection. I feel I'm a spark of the divine, and for practical purposes, how can I go through life thinking I am that supreme being when all the objects of the senses are around me, all my experiences around me, and then the 13th century comes along, Madhva, 13th, maybe 14th century comes Madhva, and Madhva comes from Karnataka, and he's from a Brahmin family, as is Ramanuja as well, and he's examining this, and he's taught this non-dualism of Shankaracharya, and he cannot reconcile it with his experience, namely, there is a devotional aspect, a sweetness in worship that says, I don't want to be God. Like saying there's sugar and I don't want to be sugar. I want the sweetness of the devotion. And now you'll see very, very closely and beautifully the arrival of dualism, which says, I am not God. I'm not the ultimate. I'm not the absolute. I'm not the Brahman. I am a creature. And the world is a creation. Not in the Judeo-Christian sense, theological sense, produced ex nihilo, from nothing. No, this nature, this prakriti, according to my reading of scripture, is always there. It's not created. There's no time when it was created. It's just always there. Like the modern scientific statement which says, the sum total of energy is energy is neither created nor destroyed. It's a conservation law. And that says in an enclosed system, we have to understand that. So very similar. this thing called Prakriti or nature, in all its potentiality, in all its kinetic aspect as well, it is always there. But it is activated from age to age by the Creator in that sense. And Ramanuja's position would be a little different. No, it's created from myself. That's fine. And Shankaracharya's position would be, yes, but at the end of the day, there's only one entity. So we pick up these different schools of thoughts from the various comprehensive commentaries from these great scholars. Not only scholars, but they were mystics as well, having the experience. Having the experience and being mystics, we can't deny the validity of each one. Each one is completely and totally valid. Now, if you take a great mystic sage such as Ramakrishna, he seems to adopt every single position under the sun, including Sikhism, including Christianity, including every position you can think of. Islam, everything, every position. Most religions would tend to agree with Madhva, a dualism, a dualistic system. So the only difference would be maybe that there is a difference in naming. Madhva was keen on saying that what we call Brahman, the ultimate, is actually Vishnu. And Ramanuja would also be a Vaishnavite. And these schools are still operating, so that some years ago when I visited Mysore and stayed with a family, they were followers of Ramanuja and would not hear of anything to do with, let's say, Shiva or any other thing. So these schools are alive and well and fixed in their position, but when you look at them closely, you'll see they're all concerned with these three things. They're concerned with what we call life, samsara, a kind of wheel of experience. They're all concerned with release from it, called moksha. And they're all concerned with in-between. They're all concerned with the causal law, which we call karma. And they all have their methods. Now, the method predominantly of the dualistic Vedantins will be, well, you see, there is a devotee, and the easiest route is love. And we are not aiming for a kind of infinite freedom. We're aiming for an infinite heaven where we're able to be in the presence of our beloved and enjoy the bliss which is there and have this dance of love in a heavenly atmosphere. And no doubt that's what they will get. And you see, Madhva was seen to be the son of Vayu, actually. And so there's a legitimacy about his teachings and his feelings. And he was a very, very skillful debater, so that he managed to defeat many people by the various arguments and also through the literature that he wrote, which asserts, come on now, you cannot be this God. You have to be separate. And then, of course, Ramanuja is also employing the path of bhakti, but all of them are retaining knowledge. All of them are retaining jnana yoga, which is the predominant method of the non-dualists. So can we reconcile any of these positions? Yes. Why? Because we acknowledge a relativity of perception. Things look different depending on where you're standing from. And so we see this as a progressive gradation. Now, when you talk about non-dualism, dualism in terms of concepts, well, concepts are mere concepts. Do concepts lead to a real experience? Yes. But the concept, a conceptualization of it, would have to be increased to the point of where imagination, image making, and reality coincide. On the what basis? On the basis that when you look into this thing called life, this movement, the objects of the sense organs and so on, what you'll find with a penetrating vision is that it is not what it seems. And so, as you increase as a dualist your level of devotional love, an awakening of knowledge occurs. The Vishishtadvaita, the chosen ideal that you have, and in Madhva's case it is Vishnu, that all-pervading entity that is there, as you get closer and closer, the conceptual understanding yields to the actual experience, a vision of God, where in this case Vishnu or Christ or whatever, the initial concept, divinely inspired concept was given, yields to a complete intimacy. And in that intimacy one feels part and parcel. Are we not talking of Ramanuja's experience too? We are feeling that we are a part, just like a limb is a part of the body. Are we not feeling, I'm a limb, I'm not exactly the whole body, but I feel connected. And then ultimately, no, I'm the totality, is a natural, revealed position. And that means, therefore, there's absolutely no contradiction at all. We just have a series of positions that can act as a toolbox. And that means that when we are faced with a closed door in daily life, we have, instead of crashing through it, we have some practical tools that we can use. So the non-dualistic tool of knowledge is more useful in some contexts, but not so useful necessarily in others, not required in others. You know, if you say, well, I believe in the atomic theory, everything is matter, that was one position, then there has to be also some inherent understanding. There must be something transcending mere matter. There must be a unity somewhere. Now, you take an atom, of course, and you say that's the finest particle there is. There's nothing beyond there. Nothing transcends the smallest thing called an atom, until you blast it open and make an atomic bomb, and then you have radiation. What became of your atom? It yielded to the field behind called radiation. But that doesn't stop you from saying, let us make it practical. I want a table made. I won't go to the carpenter and say, I'm sorry, this is an atomic thing and you think that it's solid, but actually it's all radiation. It's just potentially sitting there. The carpenter will say, okay, thank you, so what? Can you give me the kind of wood that you require? Can you give me the dimensions? And when do you want it? So we're living in a world of multiplicity where we have to also not let go of the common sense idea, just because behind it all we have a thorough understanding of the non-dual nature of things that are found in the Upanishads and explained by Shankaracharya. So all philosophic doctrines are useful. Why? Because we can shift our viewpoint. And if we have an understanding of the whole range of tools, dualism, qualified non-dualism, absolute non-dualism, then we can have the luxury of shifting our position where we want, instead of crashing through the door, and use it in a practical way, in a practical sense. So it's no good if somebody says that atoms are basically radiation, and we can prove it, we can verify it, we can disintegrate it through an atomic bomb. Well, the carpenter's not interested in that. You want mahogany wood, you want some other wood, what is the length that you require, and so on. For daily usefulness, in other words, we must let go of the ordinary, we mustn't let go of the ordinary sense-bound view of things. And we try to get some views out of them. Then we must follow the laws of our waking world. But the waking world is not the only thing, because one of the great arguments within the Upanishad, contained in the Mandukya Upanishad, will be entering into not just one experience, namely a waking experience, but there's also other experiences. The waking experience is operated by Vaishvanara, as it's called, Vishwa, and that says, well, there are really 19 parts to it, or 19 aspects to it, 19 limbs to it, and maybe 7 parts. We can identify that, split them all up. And dream state has the same amount because it's reliant on the experiences of the waking state. In other words, the summary of body and mind together, we can be symbolically split up into something like 19 plus 7. We can numerically put it. But when dream falls away, what happens? We glide into an amorphous area where there is a unity, and that is a felt experience. In other words, using the symbol Om to capture all of this, we have a waking state delineated with all its time and space and causation elements. We have a dream which also has similar things, similar restraints and boundaries, bound by time and space, although operated and constructed in a different way, and yet taken to be real. And all that falls away. Time goes, space goes, causation goes, there is a blank, but something remains, a sense of peace. And Om is a representation of that. Waking, dream, and finally dreamless sleep, followed by a silence, the inexplicable, where there is nothing else there, nothing to be described, but some entity that can recall this. And so, non-dualistic position also uses actually the causal connection. It doesn't do away with it. It uses the dualistic arguments, but it says that something has been created, there's no doubt, but at the last moment, the final conclusion, it'll take it away. And the same person who says, I own this body, which is old, I own this mind, which, I don't know, sometimes has got good habits or good memory, sometimes faulty memory. That person who is connected with this body-mind complex can be interpreted, felt, and verified to be the non-dual ultimate principle. But in some contexts, it will be easy to verify it, like meditation. But in many contexts, it might not be necessary. But having this ultimate tool of non-dualism, it becomes a pleasure then to face the world, because having the ultimate tool in one hand, you can take all the temporary tools from anywhere for daily life. That's a game. Non-duality is a system which doesn't contradict anything. It surpasses everything. It surpasses many things. And the ordinary tools are useful in certain contexts, but the ultimate tool is used in practically every single context. If you take the other side of non-dualism, which is neti taking all this away, you're left with a lila. Nitya on the one side, the Ramakrishna, the eternal on one side, but the lila is on the other side, the play. If you can take things, life, as a game, then a person who studies non-duality properly, in its proper practical context, would take this world as a game, a lila, a sport. There's a wonderful book I was quote, a very old book now, and it's called The Imprisoned Splendor by Reynold Johnson. He was a scientist, but was also interested and curious about all the phenomena that scientists bypass. For example, telepathy, or the phenomena of, outer body experience, and all of these kinds of things that nobody is prepared to touch. But a true scientist says, let me investigate properly, set up experiments. Anyway, at the end of all of this book, investigating so many things, he writes about physics with a great deal of knowledge. He's a physicist. He writes about chemistry and so on. But he writes the last chapter, The Significance of the Whole. he knew that basically there's no matter, nothing solid. But in our world of experience, we can find it. Why don't you fall through the floor? It's because electrons on the floor and electrons in the body are repelling each other. Otherwise, both being comprised largely of space with atomic so-called particles in between, which are very flaky anyhow, then we would fall through the floor. So there's this constant struggle of potential energy going on and giving us the experience of solidity. But modern science will say, not true, but we'll say, who cares? I'm not worried about that. I want to drink water, eat food, I want to walk, I have a job, and I have a desk that I'm sitting at, and all of these things, a library and so on and so forth. So Vivekananda too knew this materiality of matter was almost mythical. Modern science has verified that, but that's not our experience. When you do experiments at the most subtle area and the most fundamental area, we know by now we have to rewrite all of the physics books. And we have to say, you see, there's no such thing as a big world and a small world. Actually, the small world, if you like, the unseen world, the invisible world, is a world of wave behavior. We can't figure it out because there is something called entanglement. The big world comes under a principle of general relativity, Einstein's general relativity, with certain laws and so on, speed of light and what have you. But the quantum world works differently. And if you both cannot be true, but they are relatively true because where are you standing from? Relative perception comes in again. So a contest between the two, well, by 2022, there was a winner. The winner was quantum. And what is behind it is what is called entanglement, seemingly violating the laws of general relativity, speed of light, and so on, where miraculously one change, unknown as it were, at vast distances, makes no difference, affects another once they have met and been separated. And this is what is behind the whole of this subtle world. Now, for practical purposes, we don't even think about it. And yet that's the fact, that's the reality. So, in Swami Vivekananda's lectures on Raja Yoga, or Jnana Yoga, I should say, you'll find this dispensing with matter, and he knew a little science of his day, which has changed, of course, when he dictated his wonderful book Raja Yoga in Boston. It was in 1895. He also had enough scientific understanding in those days to know that sooner or later, physics is going to arrive at a unity beyond matter. And so Reynold Johnson discusses it, and he says, in the significance of the whole, this chapter, he says, a question is raised, if there is an ultimate principle, he says, which is an impenetrable unity, then how is it that we find this world of misery here, and what can we do from this world to become that? So being caught in the body-mind complex, like being caught in a cage of time and space and causation, with a fleeting mind, an unstable position always, how can we attain the truth? How can we understand this non-dual absolute? How can we understand something that is basically perfect, immortal, and from which all things seem to be starting? It seems to sustain everything. Well, you have to bridge a gap between the two positions. So naturally he asks, what can you do from this end to become that? So at this particular position, the only way to get some kind of help, some hint to what could be the actuality, will be, he says, the Indian theory of Leela, sport. Now, if you take this properly and use analogies of a drama, like a TV movie or something, then you'll understand the actor and the part being played are different. And it's clear that we are making a mistake in saying, I am the part being played. And as long as we have that position, there are two things that are available to us. One is to understand fully this is the part and play the game with a sense of adventure and enthusiasm. In which case you'll take life as a game. Then you have solved all the problems of samsara. Because whatever problem comes, you are equipped to deal with it like a game. And the whole principle of a game being interesting is it goes for a long time. It's not an immediately solvable thing. And so the World Cup has just been played, for example, and people are hooked into screens and televisions and what have you. And it's a compulsive thing. It doesn't matter. Even the time of night doesn't matter as long as they catch the game. And the game becomes breathtaking to the point where even if you're not there alive in the stadium, still, when somebody scores a goal or a near goal, everybody jumps up on their chairs. That's the impact of the game. Now, supposing it wasn't so exciting, supposing there weren't near misses, supposing there weren't pluses and minuses, breathtaking moments, then what kind of game would it be? Nobody would bother to watch it. The fact that it is exciting makes it a worthwhile game. Can we apply this to life? The answer is yes, of course we can. And so nobody returns the ball casually, or in tennis or in football or whatever sport you like. And so you must tell God, if that's your position, non-dualistic position, Lord, you don't play an easy game with me. You give me a nice tackle here and there, and I will learn to increase my skill in life and play this game. And it can be a loving game with the Lord. Now you're going to bring in dualism. Because dualism says, Lord, you're there on the one side. Lord, I am there on the other side. So this non-dualist system doesn't contradict the dualistic system, the duality, because we can play the game. And if it's a game, then it's better to have many, not one alone. So in the field of unity, also, it's not wrong to accept a dualistic philosophy. And by philosophy, I'm not just meaning Madhva's philosophy, because outside the Vedanta umbrella will also be the Sankhya and Yoga philosophies, which are entirely dualistic as well. Still, the methods are valid, and we can bring that into the field of unity of understanding and say that too is valid. In fact, there's nothing that we can think of which is invalid. I always say Vedanta is a system of pluses. The materialist says this world exists and it's only matter. Yes, it seems to be that. Even if you think a radiation is it, yeah, it seems to be that, but there's more. Even in the material existence, yes, it seems to be solid, but there's more, because behind it, demonstrably, is radiation. And there's more. So, what is that plus? Well, now we go to psychology. And the idealist says there is only the mind. We say it seems to be like that, yes, but there's more. What is the more? Well, there's a supreme mind called God, personal. We have a relationship with that entity. That being loves us, protects us. That being created us. That being sustains us. That being will absorb us. That being will maintain the game, and in that game will teach us how to play the game, how to hone up our skills. And the game is a game of pure love and devotion. That's okay. No problem there. But there's more. What more is there? There is that God which is maybe impersonal. And there's more. What more is there? It is the Absolute. we begin our spiritual life as if we were living inside a circle. And we initially have a concept, oh, there's a God, and that God is intrinsically outside the circle, in a distant thing. Incomprehensible, we leave it there until we're in trouble. And then we bring the God closer and say, please rescue me. What kind of game is that? It's a begging game? Never mind. In our ignorance, that's our approach. Better than nothing. And then, once we're rescued, we might now get a clue. Ah, Lord, not only do you rescue me, but I see you are on the edge of the circle all the time, watching over me. And through spiritual practice, let me bring you into this circle and make you my intimate companion, my lover. Embrace that with the possibility of a number of different bhavas or approaches. And then the realization dawns. This devotee, which was characterized by a label I, disappears. It becomes small, and the world becomes small with it. And then the boundary of the circle disappears, and we're left only with that one entity, non-dualism. So we can see that there is a progressive ladder, if you will, of supplementary positions all the time, not doing away with one position or the other, but all these positions are useful to us in certain contexts. That's the point. So I have tried to explain a little bit, and I might just leave it there for the time being. I could talk on for another hour or so, but I won't. So I hope that has been useful to you in understanding the practical distinction between these particular approaches. Where are you standing? And you can stand in any position. You have the freedom to do that once you have the whole range of tools. All right. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Well, I get some feedback. Is that answering your concerns?
Thanks, Swamiji. Your knowledge is unbelievable, the way you can speak like for an hour and have all that information. Just thanks very much. I have a bit written down, so I'll try and digest it and reflect on it.
It's called Divine Grace, but it's recorded, of course, don't forget. Yeah. All right.
Thanks.
And so just to address something that another person said, that we have to take it out of the concept area and bring it into the reality area, so that the concept is useful for us and indicates and relates to the reality as we take our journey in spirituality. All right, we leave it there.
Thank you, Swami.